So I want to quote from your 2019 paper, Economics and Gender Equality, a Lens from Within. And this was published in Capitalism and Society, which is a journal of that's coming out of Columbia. They've got a center there for capitalism and society. So that's Columbia University in New York City. And there's this great passage here that I think this summarizes where your research or your analysis, where it's getting you to, the position you're taking. So you've written, it's difficult to conceive that greater demographic diversity among economists won't have a meaningful positive impact on the quality of the processes and outputs that the profession is responsible for. The interrogation of the evidence, the robustness of debates, the comprehensiveness of issues on the research agenda, the responsiveness of policy recommendations to the needs, values, and perspectives of the population. Now, I'd like to ask, well, what evidence or what's leading you to that conclusion that if we have more demographic diversity within, or more gender diversity, it could be more racial diversity within economics, or more socioeconomic diversity, why do you think that that will have that meaningful positive impact on, well, it sounds like you think on the quality of the research, on the breadth of the research, and also on policy recommendations? What's the logic and evidence there, please, Leonora?
Well, thank you, Jean, for reading out that paragraph. I think that's one of my favorite paragraphs from the paper as well. You know, the issue of diversity, at first glance, it's about broadening topics, broadening ideas, you know, and broadening the range of issues that are being considered. And then that is really a guard against the risks and the downfalls of what we might call groupthink. If people think the same, you are by virtue narrowing your spectrum of potential ideas and potential topics. And then by an extension of that is also the process. So I think economics really, an analysis, you know, from identification of the problem to analysis of the problem to a solution to the problem, is a process of interrogation and asking the right questions and deciding on methodologies. It's all a set of decisions. And what you find in this research is that process, you can shortcut it if you all think the same, and you probably just have a standard way of doing things, and you are less likely to interrogate, you know, are we taking the right decision here? Is there an alternative? Is there a perspective we just haven't thought about? Where can we road test this? And if you had that diversity within your pool of minds and brains working on this, you are more likely to engage in those processes of interrogation. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. There's a quote in the paper too, where I found this amazing quote by the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And she talks about dissent, you know, having a differing opinion. And when dissent occurs amongst judges or lawyers, you know, weighing up the evidence, it necessitates a deeper and more robust and more thorough interrogation of the evidence. It forces you to come up with a more convincing argument, or to question any assumptions that you may have jumped to. And I love that quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because I think it has such applicability to economics, where we are weighing up the evidence, we're making decisions as to what, you know, how do we act on this evidence, what gets more weight, what do we choose to, you know, what do we judge as good quality or inferior quality? All those points of decision making along the way, I think, are all ultimately a value-based or a subjective choice that we're making as objectively as possible. But there's always scope to think, oh, there's another way of doing this. So I think the advantage of having diversity of thinking is that it presses for a more robust process.